People are still talking about Zelensky and security guarantees. But guarantees backed by what exactly? I don't think they've really been paying attention. We just came out of a lopsided, pretty rough conflict. And there's something worse than losing a fight. It's exposing that you can't fight at all, because then everyone else knows they can take advantage too. Here's how I'd put it. I've talked to Scott Ritter for years, and he told me about the Patriot missile system, how he'd worked with it and evaluated it, and honestly said it wasn't great. Then we watched it in action against Iranian missiles, and if anything, it turned out even worse than he'd described. We literally saw Patriot missiles launch, arc back down, and detonate on their own.
But to be fair, I did tell everybody about the first night of the Gulf War when I bravely climbed on top of my barracks. It's a house in a converted village, Escon Village. But I got on the roof to watch the incoming Scuds because, my God, I was the Scud guy and I wanted to see Scuds in action. So I climb up on the roof and I'm in my full chemical weapons gear because, hey, they might have had chemical weapons. And you're watching the Scud go by. You're like, wow, Scud. All of a sudden, boom! What I didn't realize is literally about 100 yards behind me was a Patriot battery. And boom, boom, boom. I'm like, damn. The Patriot missile comes, it takes off like this and then comes screaming over my head because to intercept something that's going faster than it's programmed to intercept, it can't, normally, if you're coming in like this, it's going to do a modified S shape.
Right.
To adjust fires, and then it's going to detect your trajectory and do a modified S to get the intercept. But now it fires and this thing's going faster. So it does a really modified S. It literally dives down to get the S back up. But the problem is the dive down, it blew up in the field right next to me. Boom, boom. And you're like, damn, we're shelling ourselves. But welcome to the reality of the Patriot. The Patriot missile sucks.
Here's another thing worth pointing out. It's not just that we lack the ground forces, the manpower, and the training. If we actually sent troops in, they'd be going in with zero air defense. So you'd have people deployed without the weapons to protect themselves, without the numbers needed to fight effectively, without proper training for modern warfare, and no air cover whatsoever. So when people keep floating this idea of a possible ground invasion, honestly, I just don't see how that could realistically happen. In my opinion, it would be over within hours, and not in a way that favors the U.S., Scott. What's your take?
No, they're not. Again, you're talking to someone who actually helped plan a amphibious invasion of Iran, 1985. We were tasked with seizing Chabahar and then seizing Bandar Abbas. Why? Because under our scenario, the Soviets were making a move to capture Iran, to take their warm water ports, and they were coming in from Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and from Afghanistan, the 40th Army. And the Afghan one was the biggest threat because it could literally cut through and take a left-hand hook and be in Chabahar. There was a couple mountain ranges. So our job was to seize the port, project power ashore, go take the mountain passes and hold the mountain passes against the Soviets while we built up power ashore. The invasion at that time, 60 to 80,000 Marines, and then around 140,000 soldiers at that time, Army. And we had the forces earmarked for this. It's not like we had to make them up. They existed, and we had the equipment, and we had the ability to get the equipment in the suit. We could do this, but it required, the forcible entry into Iran. We don't have forcible entry capacity anymore. I'm talking about back then, we would be putting a division ashore, with at least 2 brigades online, doing the amphibious assault, and then punching in with another division, a core element, core headquarters. And, this was war. And then the Army would come in with even more. And when I talk about this, it's not just the troops, but, the sustainability. We had all the ammunition, all the fuel, everything, all the food. that needed to support this. We had it all, and our job was to seize the port, push it ashore. So I have an idea what it takes to do something like this. I can tell you right now, we don't, in the entire U.S. military today, I'll make that one more time. In the entire U.S. military today, we don't have the capacity to do what we're trying to do in 1985, or at least prepared to do. We couldn't invade Iran even if we wanted to. I'll say it again, just so it understands, because I saw a comment in there. He said, I expected Scott to say nice things about America because I thought he was a patriot. A patriot tells the truth. A patriot doesn't lie. If I hated my country, I'd be saying things like invade Iran so that the Marines and the soldiers could get slaughtered on the beach. But because I am a professional patriot, I make sure that I'm honest about what's going on. I'm just here to tell you right now, just so everyone understands, we don't have the capacity today in the totality of the United States military to do an invasion of Iran, nor would we be able to generate the strength to do it. Even if we mobilized the reserves and the National Guard and everything, we couldn't do it. Because understand that even as we push into Iran, we still have to maintain residual forces that are capable of reinforcing the 39,000 troops we have in South Korea and reinforcing the 34,000 troops we have in Germany. You know, we can't just take everything. But even if we took everything, we can't do it. We don't have the ability to do it. We don't have the logistical support infrastructure. We don't have anything. We don't have the combat forces. It takes us 5 months to get a U.S. Army heavy brigade ready to be deployed from the United States to Europe under peacetime conditions. Now, we're going to need, a dozen Army heavy brigades to go into Iran. How are we getting them there, ladies and gentlemen? What shipping is going to get them there? We don't have it. And when we get them there in the shipping, because it's not amphibious assault shipping, what port are they going to land in? Because I don't think the Iranians, with their ballistic missile supremacy, are going to sit there and say, yeah, go ahead, land them in the port. We won't fire any missiles at you. All those ships will be sunk before they got to the port. So all the tanks that are on board will be underwater. Please, please, please stop pretending we have military capacity today. We don't. Iran is stronger today than they were in 1985 by orders of magnitude. And remember, Iran will be operating what's called interior lines of communication. It's just a basic military concept, but it means they're at home. They're the home team. And so when they want to go out and buy a hot dog, get some popcorn and a soda, they just have to walk down the street, and there's the hot dog vendor, the soda vendor, and the popcorn vendor. When we want hot dog, popcorn, and a soda, we got to go all the way back to the United States and get it and have it brought out to us. And as we saw with the Abraham Lincoln, that sometimes doesn't work. We can't even support one carrier battle group logistically, and you're telling me that you want to invade Iran with a force of at least 900,000 up to 1.2 million would be required, and we're supposed to support it. Ladies and gentlemen, our military is broke, flat out broke. Every aspect of it's broke. It's a lot of flash and no substance. And sadly, I can say that about the Marine Corps too. We have battalion landing teams that can do battalion landing team type missions. But if you think for a second, a battalion landing team can, make miracles happen. No, they're just Marines. They're flesh and blood. And as the Iwo Jima Memorial shows, when you put Marines on a beach and there's heavy enemy fire, Marines die. They die by the bushelful. So as a good patriot, I don't want my Marines to die, especially needlessly. Now, if they need to die, I'll be more than happy to lead them in combat. I spent a lot of years prepared to do just that. But, a patriot wants to make sure that when we send the Marines into combat, that it's a mission that is worth the sacrifice that we're asking them to make, and B, it's a mission that can be accomplished with the resources that we possess. And right now, we have zero military capacity to do anything of substance.
Honestly, anyone making those kinds of statements doesn't really grasp the basics of modern warfare anymore, especially with today's long-range strike capabilities. The whole idea of massing hundreds of thousands or millions of troops just isn't realistic anymore. Say we announced plans to confront Russia over Ukraine and started moving hundreds of thousands of troops into bases in Romania. The moment Russia noticed that buildup, those bases would be reduced to rubble. Same logic applies to Iran. If they saw troops massing at ports or assembly points, they might just wait until everything's in place and then strike. Long-range precision and drone capabilities have completely changed what modern warfare looks like. The old idea of rolling in a 10-mile-long column of tanks and pushing forward, that era is over. Even groups like the Houthis have shown they can hit assembly points early, and look at the trouble that caused. Long-range strike and drone technology have fundamentally changed the ability to project aggressive military force into someone else's territory.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, let's look at Ukraine for just a second. If you remember in 2022, 2023, big push to get tanks sent there. Send them tanks, lots of tanks. We need tanks. And then in June of 2023, the Ukrainians decided they were going to send all their tanks and armored fighting vehicles into a massive offensive outside of Robotyno. They were slaughtered by the Russians. And this is before the Russians even perfected drone warfare. The Russians are still getting them with just basically, infantry, armor ambushes done in depth. This is before drones. Today, the tanks right now, all these new, Leopard 4s that they got, they're like the best tank in the world. I mean, my God, they're Leopards. They're German tanks. Many of them have sat in the same place now for 2 years because they can't move. They got them hidden in the woods with camouflage netting over them. But if they move them, even if you start an engine, understand the Russians are sitting up there with a big old drone that's looking down, and you start the engine, and it goes, the black and the gray smoke comes out, and the Russians go, ooh, smoke. How interesting. And then they take another drone down to look at it, and they determine it's there, and maybe that drone can weave its way through, because I watch the Russian drone operators. They have forest obstacle courses, and their drone operators sit there and, steer the stuff through this stuff. And so they steer their drone in there, and there's the poor Leopard crew trying to get their Leopard started up just to keep the engine working, and boom, it's dead. You don't survive as a tank right now. Basically, if you're going to do tanks, for instance, like the way the Russians do tanks, they will shove drones in, slaughter enemy drones, all that, and then tanks will zip in, do the fire support that they need to do for that period of time, and then zip the hell out. Tanks don't hang out on the front line. They don't sit there and cruise around going, I'm a big bad tank, I'm going to blow you up, because here comes the drone and you're dead. That's just the way it works. So, the whole concept of war has changed, and we, frankly speaking, we can't accept that. You go to every single one of the schools where we train our soldiers and Marines, and somebody in there was picking on me because they said something about the U.S. Army in the 1980s. I don't care about the U.S. Army in the 1980s. I wasn't in the U.S. Army. That's their problem. Right, yeah. No, their problem. I was in Marine Corps. Okay, you want to be critical of the Marines? Come to me. If you want to be critical of the Army? Go elsewhere, baby. That's a different postcode, zip code. Called loser, Loser. That's the Army. Winner, Marines. Sorry, I just had to put on my Marine hat for a minute. But the point is, we're training people the wrong thing. Even our drone guys, we're so far behind in drone concepts of operation. And it's funny, if you remember how when drones started, one of the first things people talked about was drone swarms.
Right.
Remember that? There can be swarms of drones. It doesn't work in combat. It doesn't work in combat. That's why it's not happening, because there's jamming going on. That you don't want to put all your. It's much better to have the individual drones coming in, seeking out the target. They can do some AI stuff, but the problem with AI is it's communications, and people thought, oh well, if we just create, again, now we get into terms I don't truly understand, but mesh networking is some sort of internet type communication that takes place between drones that's supposed to be impervious to traditional jamming of RF frequencies. Yes, but it's not impervious to jamming of mesh. If you require a drone to communicate with another drone by anything other than a wire, it will be jammed or disrupted. So the drone swarm concept doesn't work. It doesn't. Drone warfare is very lethal, but it's also very hard because there's enemies out there trying to disrupt what you do. So, we don't understand. In the United States, we're like, we're going to bring in, because I've seen the Marine Corps, they're like, we've got this unit. It's on a Humvee. Yay, the Humvee. and it's going to come in. And then they show a whole swarm of drones coming in. And then they push the magic button on the Humvee, and it goes pulse. And all the drones go, oh, tits up and die.
Right.
That ain't how it works, ladies and gentlemen, just so you understand. There ain't going to be a swarm of drones coming in. And how long does it take to recharge the pulse generator? So now I'm fighting the pulse generator, and I send in my drone, and I come in high. I want them to see me, and they go, boom, 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 and my drone dies, tits up, dead. And now my other two drones come in, the ones with the fiber optic wires that I held in ambush there sitting on the ground, pop in, bang, bang, dead. Another one comes in and cleans up the troops as they try to escape, and 4 drones and this magic weapon's dead. Drone operators, really, the only way to defeat a drone operator is to kill a drone operator, which is what the Russians are doing, people. I've been telling you this for a long time now. The evidence is starting to come out. If the Ukrainians move, they die. And unfortunately, to launch a drone, you have to move. You have to get out of your little underground cavern and walk out to the drone launching place and put the drone down. Now, you can try and do it cleverly, like stick your arm out. I saw the video of the guy doing that. He thought he was being clever, stick just his arm out. Well, the Russian filmed it. Why? I'm watching the film. He sticks his arm out, sticks his arm back in, and then he goes off to me. A couple minutes later, 3 FAB 500 glide bombs come in. These are the big boys. They come in and go boom, boom, boom. There ain't nothing left of the drone operator. You won't be able to find anything. There's not even a shred of it's all gone. And the Russians are doing this to drone operators on a daily basis. When they're not doing that, they have deep reconnaissance teams coming in and slitting their throats. Because you know what you don't want to be when you get captured by the Russians? A Ukrainian drone operator who's made movies of killing Russian soldiers who are trying to surrender or taking prisoners out doing the snuff film. You see, the Russians record everything. I know. I talked to them. They have it. They have everything the Ukrainians do. And the moment the Ukrainians do something like that, the Russians identify the unit, and using their intelligence, they get the unit roster. And believe me, the guys at the front line know. They know. Now, I'm not justifying this because it's a war crime. I'm just telling you what the reality is. Ask the Georgian drone unit, the one that went into Kursk and sat there and made videos of them killing not just, Russian soldiers who were wounded, pleading to be saved. No, they killed them. Oh, but they hunted down old men. They got women. They got children. They videotaped it all. Now, the Russian infantry overruns their position. And there's about, a score of these Georgians. And they show them surrendering, and they're sitting there on the ground. And then the Russians pulled their cell phones, the Georgian cell phones, and started going through the videos that these guys were sending to their family members and everything. And as soon as they saw what these guys did, killed them right on the spot. That's what's going to happen to all of you Ukrainian drone operators because you're all criminals. I would prefer to see the Russians arrest you, put you on trial, and then execute you. But when you make a video of hunting down an old man trying to escape with his dog, which they've done, or the old woman with her 3 grandchildren, killing them, which they've done, including a wounded grandchild trying to crawl away from the dead grandmother, having a drone come in just to kill that baby, you're all going to die. Not me saying that. I'm not condemning you. I'm in no position to condemn you. I'm just telling you what the truth is. And right now, the Russians are taking it to Ukrainian drone operators, which is why they have to recruit women. They're out of men. And it takes a long time to train them. I mean, you remember a while back the Ukrainians in their infinite wisdom, because they always have to say how good they are and how wonderful they are. So they created a school for drone operators. And they put a whole bunch of drone operators there along with their Western trainers. And they graduated. And they announced, we're graduating on this day at this place. And they all got together in the auditorium. And then they went outside for the class photo. No shit. A class photo. And they're all out there. And the Russians went, boom, killed them all. Entire class wiped out, gone. And the Ukrainians are like, well, we don't have any drone operators. These guys are supposed to go out and be our drone operators. So they had to recruit new ones. And now they're all dying. It takes a long time to train a Ukrainian drone, to train a competent drone operator. A long time. Minimum 4 weeks just to get out of the schoolhouse. to get into the field. Then another 4 weeks or plus learning how to operate. And then you got to learn how to survive, because if you just throw them into the front line, they don't know how to survive. I told you the story about the guy that was sitting there in his hide spot drinking his water. He's supposed to get up and walk over and put the water in the trash bin, because you can't leave anything behind because the Russians will detect it. And he sat there and he got lazy. He was cocky. He's about 12 days into his 14-day rotation. And he's like, I've been alive. I've been launching drones. I'm good. And he, tries to Michael Jordan it, or Larry Bird it. And off the rim, bounce, spins outside the coverage. The bottle's spinning, and the Russian drone operator goes, oh, look, a spinning bottle. I wonder where that came from. And then they reverse engineered it. 5 minutes later, Iskander missile on the site, killing everybody. That's just the way it is, ladies and gentlemen. The Russians are killing everything. Now, the Ukrainians are pushing fresh troops in. They have a lot of drones, and in some areas, it's created a problem. You still hear Russians go, it's a tough day today. A lot of Ukrainian drones fly. But all that means is that Rubicon, which is the elite Russian anti-drone unit, will come in. When I say anti-drone, I don't mean shooting drones down. I mean killing Ukrainian drone operators. And Rubicon comes in and takes control of the situation and kills everybody. And then there's no longer a drone problem. And Rubicon's expanding in size. They right now have between 5,000 and 8,000 operators. The Ukrainians aren't killing them in large numbers, and they're getting more. So pretty soon, Rubicon won't be a fire brigade going from point to point to point, but Rubicon will be assigned to each sector, and their job is to eradicate everything. It's a tough war. There's no doubt about it. But what we're doing in the United States, we don't understand. And here's the other thing too: when we do send personnel forward to learn, because we do. I know we don't like to admit it, but ladies and gentlemen, we do have American military personnel on the ground in Ukraine who are attached to these units, learning, trying to get firsthand combat experience about how the Russians fight, to bring that back so we can train. But there's a difference between learning. Imagine if I got attached to a Russian drone unit that's been in the field now for a year and a half, and all of their guys are experienced drone operators. They're out there doing their thing. I'm like, I'm getting to see very experienced veterans do their thing. Now you're the American who gets attached to the Ukrainian drone unit. Well, it's a brand new drone unit because everybody died. And they're brand new and they don't know what they're doing. They're just straight from the schoolhouse, and they get out in the front lines and they die. What are you learning? Nothing. And so we're taking the wrong lessons back. We're frankly learning from the wrong side. If you want to learn how to do drone warfare, don't do it with the Ukrainians because they're losing. Do it with the Russians, but we can't because they're the enemy.